Thank you. That is exactly what we don't want. All right. Now, how do you pin the presentation? You see the face that you want, you click on it, it is really pinned, right? As we kind of see here. Now, how are we going to do questions? Onlinequestions.org. Simple. Go in there. Remember this ID. You're also going to see it at the bottom of every slide as we go ahead. 202-00521. Just enter that event number and you can go in and add questions. They'll all be anonymous. So, try not to keep them too fun. But yeah, add the questions you like. You can even upvote questions from others that you think are important if they're already asked. And then at the end of the session, for about 10 to 15 minutes, I and my colleagues can go through these. All right. So, when you think about analytics, right, there's always a question, right, which is this really, rocket science or is this storytelling? And, the answer to that is it is actually rocket science for storytelling, right? See, end of the day, we're all in the consumer business, we're all in the storytelling business, and analytics is really about telling the story of what's happening with your consumers. And then you do use a few numbers and a few, put a little bit of science and rigor into writing that story. So how do we do this, right? We first need to have a mental approach in place, right? So the first thing that we all need to do is, one, define what our goals are, right? Everything starts with a clear goal. I want to be at this level on this date. Then the next question is for you to then have a hypothesis of how you will get there, right? Are you going to reach this level of viewership, because you shared it with a lot of people? Is it because that the platform itself recommends it? Is it something that is super searchable and people find it? So you need to then have, either out of your gut instinct or experience or data, some kind of a plan to get there, right? To just upload a video is not a plan, right? You also need to have a way for people to kind of get there. The third thing is, for whatever your plan is, you need to decide what are the important metrics, right? You can't look at all metrics for all plans, but for each plan, you need to take a look at the right metrics. So, I'll give you an example, right? Here's a simple thing, right? Let us say, your strategy is that you will share on social, right? Then maybe the metrics that you want to look at is, the inbound views coming in from the traffic source, which is search, right? Which is maybe not something that you will use for something else. And it's not aggregate views, but it's something very specific, right? So you need to kind of think about that. And then the last thing is, when you kind of put this all together, you then have a story, which is really how your audience discovered it, how they interact with it, and then that is right. Now I'm going to let you in on something which is going to blow your minds. What does YouTube optimize towards? The answer is not views, but it's just watch time. It's time. All right, it's not really that big a revelation or a secret. So here's something, right? Pretty much the whole video industry since the beginning of TV really has focused on time, right? Like if you think about ratings on TV through any your Nielsen's and whatever you have, really what everyone's optimizing for is time spent viewing the content. It's no different on YouTube. That's what we go towards. So how much time do people spend watching a video, your channel, your playlist, and the overall platform? And at a really high level, that's what we're trying to optimize towards. And so when you are looking at your whole strategy, what you want to do is really think about what affects time, because all the other things that are important really come with that. Now, how do we kind of get here? Now, if you think about this logically, right, there are only a few ways by which people can discover and then start watching a video, right? And by the way, what I'm going to tell you now, you already know this. It's actually extremely simple, and you navigate this every day just as consumers, right? So let's kind of go through that and then look at the logical imperatives from each of these parts, right? So here is the first part. Simple search. People search for things. I'm sure many of you might have heard from your YouTube partner managers or externally that while Google is the world's largest search engine, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine.
Maybe.
Right? So if it's the world's second largest search engine and a lot of people are searching, right? How do you get people to discover content that is relevant to them? Simple, you tell us. You put in your titles, you put in your description. This is your metadata. If you put it in, we know it. If you don't put it in, we don't know it, right? Now, let's take a look at this example here, right? If someone searches for coronavirus versus COVID or COVID-19, right? These are all different searches. And we sometimes may be decent at joining the dots, but a lot of times we rely on you to tell us. So we only know what you tell us. Simple. How do you figure out what search terms are popular, right? And this could basically come in from two viewpoints. One goal could really simply be to say, hey, how do I make content around topics that are currently being searched for? So for that, you could use tools like trends.google.com. A lot of powerful tools for you to figure out, what people are watching at a category, at an item, at an entity level, for a country, 1 hour, last 7 days. A lot of good stuff there. There are tools within Google Ad Manager, etc., to kind of do similar things, right? And please don't judge my preferences when you see them here. The second thing that you can also do is you could also use it to maybe refine your metadata so that okay, if I have the right piece of content for the right consumer, how do I make sure that I write my titles and my descriptions in a way such that he discovers it using the search options that he has, right? So you could basically maybe use terms that are relevant, that are maybe slightly more popular as opposed to less popular choices, right? The second way, that's the first way. The second way, the YouTube homepage, right? Now, because we're all on maybe our computers right now. That's my assumption. I put up a computer screenshot, but I would really like you to visualize this from the standpoint of your phone, right? If you open up your phone and you open the YouTube homepage, you generally just see one, two, maybe two thumbnails, right? The top one's generally an ad, and then maybe you see 1 or 2 videos, right? So what does this really mean? First thing is, that real estate, which is probably the most valuable real estate on YouTube, that first video, that second video in that feed, as you're scrolling through that, right, people are going to really look at this and react visually, right? Because, each, when you have 1 or 2 videos basically on the screen, each video's, the opportunity to convert, to click on it and then to start watching, that's a lot higher, right? That's the first thing that you should really keep in mind, right? So how do you end up on the homepage? What goes into the homepage? The first thing is, well, really, one, we're optimizing for time. And within that, we're looking at one, recency of uploads, right? We look at, what you're regularly watching as well as what's coming from your subscriptions, right? So what do you do here? First, encourage people to click. How do you do that? Beautiful, high resolution, focused thumbnails, right? Stand out. Give yourself a template for your brand so that when people see, they don't even need to think, they know it's coming from your channel, right? Second, regular uploads, because they come very often on your home screen. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you look at your homepage traffic in your traffic sources report, you often see that for a video is in the first few days and then maybe not so much later. And the reason for that is the way this gets surfaced, right? Take a look at your click-through rate. Now, what is click-through rate? We'll look at it later, but at a simple level, how many people are clicking on the thumbnail and then starting to watch the view, right? So that ratio, that's the click-through rate. So what do you have to do? Get people to subscribe. How do you get people to subscribe? Well, you can ask them. You can literally put up a slate at the beginning of your video saying, folks, subscribe. You can put in subscription links in the description. You can enable the channel icon, which helps you get people to subscribe. I'm sure you have seen a lot of CTAs where people at the end of a video tell folks, hey, people, like, subscribe, so forth, so on. So go ahead and do those things. Not rocket science. Ask people, and a lot of times they do that. One more simple thing, when you share links on social or externally, why don't you try sharing the subscribe URL? That is URL which if you post from your channel, when they click on it, they'll come to a page which says, are you sure you want to subscribe? It's a great idea, right? Then, of course, we have a subscriptions tab, which is under our overall browse features strategy, right? So over there, when you look at this, this is pretty much just in reverse. This is just in chronological order. The most recent uploads from your subscription surface. As simple as that. People subscribe, you see them here. Next, the next way. People come to your channel, and here, what you are doing is, instead of YouTube's algorithm curating for the consumer, you are curating for the consumer, right? Now, here's a look at something which you two have recently done, right? Again, I'm a U2 fan. I watched their show here last year. Yes, remember the days when we used to go to concerts? Those days will come again. Anyway, Bono just, as he turned 60 years old, put out a playlist called 60 Songs That Saved My Life. Only a few songs are really from his own channel. Most of these are from artists that he admires. So he's curating here something for them. And then after that, then he's putting up content from his channel or channels he admires, albums, conversations. So he's curating and arranging just like a website or an app, any content app. Here are the things that I think you should see, right? So this is what you can do over here. So I think over here, what you want to do is, one, really get into the shoes of your consumer, understand what they want and what is of value for them. Two, think visual, think visual, think visual, right? It's like putting, it's really important to be visual and then design around that, because packaging is everything, right? It's like I take jewelry and then I put it in a plastic bag. No, I'm going to put it in a great jewelry case, right? And it's the same with your visual presentation, right? So I think that's the other thing that you need to think about. Third thing is, just like all across the internet, the top level real estate is really prime time. Most people look at that and then they make a decision or they move on. So, put up the things that your consumers are really going to, kind of find valuable up at the top. And then the next way of discovering content, the video watch page, which is what? While you're watching a video, right? So if you're on your phone, if you are in the portrait mode, you see all of this real estate below that, right? Or if you're on a computer, you maybe see a lot more. And if you're in the landscape mode, then, when you pull up some of those overlays, then you see some options, right? So all of those clickable things, that's really your video watch page. And some part of this is what we recommend, right? This is really what we're recommending. This is what is our suggested, right? But that's really based on personalized preferences. There's not a lot that you can do there. However, if you see, we have some beautiful products like cards and end cards where you can actually tell the viewer, hey, if you are watching this, why don't you also watch this? In fact, this might be the most valuable real estate for you to cross promote, because this is really where you get the most time and attention and interaction from your consumer, right? So this is a really important thing. And then the last thing, right? Clicking on a link when you are not on YouTube. So this could be a website, this could be an app, this could be an ad, this could be social, this could be anything, right? And the way to think about this is a very simple formula, right? I'm outside YouTube, I shared my video link. How many people did it reach? How many people clicked on it? And that's the views that you most likely will get, as simple as that. And it's so simple to demystify that, right? Let's say you put out a Facebook post and it reaches 1 million people, okay? And you get, let's say, a 1% click-through rate, which is a good click-through rate, right? Then that's what, 1,000 people, if my math is not wrong. But yeah, you get 1,000 people, so you're gonna get 1,000 views. So it's as simple as that externally. So what are the to-dos for you over here, right? You got to really think about, how do I leverage media outside of YouTube to basically drive views? And what you need to do is really think a bit deeper. It's not just about the action of posting or sharing, but to really say, if I want 1 million or 10 million or whatever goal, views, and then watch time from this traffic source, have I reached enough people at this 1% or 2% or 0.1% click-through rate so that I get those views? If you don't do that, you will not get that, right? So that's it. Think about this. These are all of the ways you can discover content. One, someone searched. Two, they subscribed and you saw them on the homepage or subscriptions tab. Third, they came to your channel and you curated something for them. Fourth option, they were watching a video of yours, however they came there, and then you suggested something. And then 5, they were not on YouTube. You found a way to reach them either on your website, a deal, social, an ad, whatever it is, they clicked and they came there. Now, why is this important? Why did I kind of walk you through all of this, right? To go back to the first point I made, analytics is really, when you think about the mental model, it's just about verifying if your hypotheses held true, right? You know who your consumer is. You have a hypothesis on how he should reach you, and then you take some actions. Analytics is really about measuring that. Did it happen the way you thought it would? Is it happening to the extent it is? Can I carry out tests? And then can I get better at executing my strategy, right? Again, to iterate the point as we go ahead, please remember to always think in watch time. So every time you do an action, you really want to think about like, is productive? And that productivity is to really think, does every action I take add watch time, and how much does it do? And then you want to keep doing more of the higher watch time adding activities and less of the lower watch time adding activities. Like, what is the point of posting on social 1,000 times a day if all of your traffic is coming from search, for example, right? Just to give you a very, very silly example, right? All right. Now, what we will now do is, keeping this in mind, let's now take this and see how do we kind of implement this and then use the new and improved analytics, which has a bunch of really nice features that we worked hard on launching for you. So let's go to it. So the first thing is, now, we talked about those metrics, right? So maybe here is a way for you to think about understanding your channel and then, attaching some companion metrics. And I'm sure a lot of you use much more sophisticated metrics, like the way you think about these. And, a lot of you will come up with your own. And I think it's not that this is the rule book of these are the metrics to watch. Rather, it's really about saying, of these metrics, at which level of drill down or for which one of my strategies are the appropriate metrics, thinking through that, and then finding the right set of metrics to tap, right? So if you want to understand your channel, the first thing is you want to say, hey, how is my channel doing? So you could look at it from a, the mother metric, watch time standpoint, then, views, subscribers, etc. Gives you a general picture. But you want to go deeper, and you can do that. We'll get to that. The second, who is watching? A view is not a view is not a view. You have to know your target audience. Remember, you cannot be something for everyone, but you can surely be everything for someone, right? And so know your target audience and define them, the demographics, where they are, the device OS, and then things that which, unfortunately we cannot surface in analytics, but I think you can qualitatively get, right? Who is this person? How do they spend their day? What are the important moments of their life? When do they interact with you? What are the emotional feelings about your content in your channel? And having that good psychographic map, which is an understanding of your consumer, that's going to help you actually execute better, which then means you will measure better in analytics. Third, how do they get there? For me, this is literally the most important thing to look at, right? This is your daily, weekly, monthly chart. Like, this for me is the Bible analytics. This is the Bible analytics section. We will come to that, right? But your reach, how they got there, which is why I spent all of this time before walking you through that. And then, of course, the click-through rate, which is how many people had a reach with my thumbnails, how many clicked on it, and then, gave me a view, which then led to time, right? And then the last part, once they started watching, what did they do? Did they watch for 1 second? Did they watch for 1 hour? Did they then subscribe? Did they carry out CTAs? Did they share? Did they like? Did they comment? All of these things which you do once you start watching a video. For me, one of the things I feel is the biggest tragedy is for someone to discover your video, watch it, and then leave. That is not success. That is a failure. Watching a video should be the same. Please mute, sir or madam. Thank you. Yes. So it would be a tragedy for someone to basically just watch a video and leave. You want someone to watch a video and then like or subscribe or watch the next video or have a takeaway to come back next week to not watch the video. The video is just opening the door. Once you come in, you want to sit them down on the couch, you want to give them some snacks, you want to give them a drink, you want to hang out with them, right? So please keep this in mind. And that's a really important part of that journey as well. So don't stop at watch the video and left, but what after? So here is your wheel of fortune. I know I'm presenting a lot of models here, but maybe this is just how I mentally kind of think about this. So I'm just sharing this with you. So what are the next steps and how do these map back to analytics? We've gone through this. Define your audience, establish an action on the growth strategy. Have a strategy in mind, then take an action. And then now we come to analytics, right? Now what happens? And you need to define a frequency. Now, everything you measure will be measured on a different frequency. Not every report is worth on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're taking a look at your channel demographics at a channel level. maybe it's not worth checking this every single day, right? Unless something just fundamentally different happens where, one video becomes 90% of your views on a regular day, your audience is your audience. So what's the point of checking it on a daily basis? Maybe instead you want to track the change across a quarter or, some appropriate frequency, right? So that's something. Maybe if you want to look at traffic sources patterns on a regular basis, maybe weekly is enough, but for certain videos, you might want to check daily, right? So I think for every metric that you check, you really want to have a weekly, a daily, a daily, a weekly, a monthly, and then of course, quarterly, yearly, etc. analysis, timeframes. But time frame is so important in deciding how you are assessing your business. And then the last part, the thing about digital is, right, it is unlimited time, unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, and also unlimited forgiveness to some extent. Which means what? You can test and test and test and test, because this is not a this is not a pond, this is a river, right? Things are always moving. So what's true today may not be true tomorrow. In fact, will likely not work tomorrow. And what is going to work tomorrow, nobody knows. If you think about this, most of us folks here at YouTube and Partner Managers, I don't think we're really coming to you with original ideas that we have discovered on our own. We're actually taking a look at what you all do, figuring out the things which are best practices, and then sharing it back with the with the broader community. And so it is very important for you to say 10%, 15%, whatever you're comfortable with, is really how much of testing you're going to do. Does this style work or does that style work? Does this promotional strategy work or does that work? Keep on testing. And every time you test, you'll find I do 10 tests, 9 fail and 1 worked. That is an amazing thing to find out, because now you know the 9 things that didn't work today and the 1 thing that can work, and you'll only know it by testing, right? Not just that, the 9 things which didn't work today, maybe day after they will work. So you got to keep some of these things, back in the bank and then bring them out on a regular interval, which makes sense for whatever you're trying to think about, right? So this is what I would say. Now, finally, let's get to the product and kind of walk through the, let's walk through the interface. Unfortunately, I can't give you a live demo of the interface because, with analytics, I'll be throwing out data and I can't share, one person's data with everyone. So I'm going to be using screenshots. So please add questions, and then at the end of the Dory, I'll try to tackle them, right? In the, in that onlinequestions.org section, right? All right, now let's get to it. So our new analytics is now organized slightly differently. So if you look at the top, horizontally, you kind of see this, which is really your conversion funnel, right? So first is you get an overview picture of everything that's happening, and then you get into the conversion funnel, right? Which is reach. How many people did my thumbnails reach? And then what did people do? And then who were they? And then money, money, money. Most important thing, maybe for most partners, right? So that's how we try to organize it, right? So you take a look at the overview, broad picture. When you go to your analytics section, then you kind of see all of the important reach metrics. Now let's take a look at this section in a bit more detail. The first thing you'll see over here is you kind of have an overview section as opposed to a deep dive analytics section, at first first glance, right? Here itself, interestingly, now you can add a date range and basically filter, right? So this is a big ask, which is an improvement in this view. And then you can see a lot of things, right? Like, where did my audience come from, right? To impressions and how they led to watch time, right? Because people have to see a thumbnail and then click on it and then watch it and then spend time, right? And time is your objective, not views, right? And then playlists and so forth. So you've got a lot of important, views here, which can kind of give you a summary view. Then the next thing that you do is you get them into engagement. All right, they started watching my video. Now, what do they do? What are the top videos? What are the top videos in terms of, my portfolio cross promotion? What are the top shares and the compilations and the curation that I've done, and so forth, so on, right? So all of these things that you have worked hard at, you can actually see the top level view of the results over here. Now, if you want to now see who these people are, right? Because you have a hypothesis about your audience, and then you want to make sure that you are reaching them, right? You can actually see this here. And here are a couple of interesting things. So the first thing is, right up top, we are surfacing this to you, right? About, what is the watch time from your subscribers and non-subscribers. Now, a lot of you have asked us before, hey, I have 1 million subscribers. How did I get just 10,000 views, right? first interesting thing is, not all of your videos reach all of your subscribers from an impression standpoint. Two, not all of your subscribers will want to watch every video of yours. Number two, the third part, a large part of your reach is actually from people who are not subscribed to you, right? And I think that's what makes YouTube really interesting, right? Because you can keep going beyond your subscription, this one, right? That's why if you have 1 million subscribers, you can get 10 million views as well, right? So you kind of see that snapshot up top, right? Then a lot of the things about your audience. And then here is something which all of you have, I'm pretty sure 100% of you have wanted to know before, which is, hey, why have people, people keep complaining, I did not get a notification, or I did not see this video because I did not get the right notification for a new upload, right? So we are actually giving you a quick snapshot on, bell notification analytics, right? How many people over here actually have said that they want to receive your notifications, and then on doing so, how many of them actually clicked through and went there? So you really understand this. By the way, even if people have said they want to watch your channel's notifications, they want to receive your channel's notifications, they may actually go to the YouTube app and say, hey, I don't want to receive notifications more than once a day or once a week. Or if you're like me, and frankly, this is a confession from my side, I've disabled all of my YouTube notifications. I just don't like notifications. So it really doesn't matter what I do at the channel level, right? But at least that snapshot is available to you here, right? Then from there, we go into revenue, right? So all of the important things, how much money did I make? What were the top videos? Where did it come from? And so this really then helps you map out your ROI, right? So how did people come there? What did they start engaging with? And then finally, did this make sense for you, right? So you can kind of see all of these things and then kind of put this together. Now you might tell me, hey, Siddharth, this is great. This gives you a great snapshot, but how do I go get deeper? Let me show you, right? So the first thing is, there are a couple of ways by which you can do this. 1 minute. All right. So the first thing is, if you want to take a look at just one particular video, you can actually go to the video section. And while you're looking at the videos and you want to see, hey, what have I done? You can actually just click through from there and go immediately into video analytics. So I think this is a key feature that a lot of people ask for. And similar to what you saw before, you can get all of these views at a video level. The second is, within any of these tabs, you can actually, within analytics, within any of these sections, you can just click on the see more here from any of these tabs, and you will immediately go into a detailed view, which now starts to look a bit similar to the old analytics, right? Now, this, by the way, is true whether you are looking at it from a CMS standpoint. There are slightly different things there. So we'll focus on the channel level, but if you understand this, you can also navigate CMS, right? So what happens over here? You see a series of layouts here, which is really the various types of views you can have, and then filters by which you can narrow down what you want to look at. And then you can see charting, and then familiar things, right? Like what's the first metric you want to chart? What's the second metric you want to chart? And then, do I want to see a line chart, a bar chart? Do I want to see this daily, monthly? Do I want to see a particular date range? All of these things that you know from before. So let's get into this, right? The first, my favorite thing to track, traffic sources. So how are all the ways people discovered your channel, your group of channels, your videos, your video group, all of these things? You can basically look at this, right? And you can chart this and understand how things are going, or how things happen on a particular entity, or how people are doing things over a period of time, right? And this really then helps you map out. This is the one chart which tells you, was my strategy effective or not? Did how I hypothesized people would discover my content, did that actually happen or not? And to what extent, right? This is what tells you that. The next, right? Interactions. Now, what are interactions? We talked about this before. How much time did I spend? Did I like it? Did I dislike it? Did I share? Did I subscribe? Did I add comments? So all of these things which kind of show a healthy relationship with your video, your content, your channel, all of that is what you see here, right? This is right in upfront in the videos tab. You take a look on the additional metrics, or you can choose another metric here. So here's an interesting thing we've done. This table here, you can actually have different values here than you have in the chart above. So you can choose something here which you will see here, or you can just keep adding metrics here in the table and have them populate before. So we've added this flexibility, right? So within this now, you might add things like, likes. You can basically add, cross promotion and the effectivity of this cross promotion. You can look at, for example, community engagement. So there are a lot of things over here that will really give you the full picture, right? Now, not every one of this is important for every video. Again, it goes back to, again, I know I'm saying this ad nauseum. Who's your audience? What did you expect them to do? Have they done it? So find the right metric. The next thing, right? The actual conversion. How much time have they spent actually watching that content now that they have reached that, right? Now within this, right, you want to do a couple of things, right? The first thing is you want to see maybe at an overall channel level, less at a video level, but maybe except for certain key videos, at overall channel, see how is my consumption actually trending, right? Like what's the, okay, let me not use trend. What's the pattern like, right? So you might want to check for seasonality. You might want to check for how their interests change over time. So this is how you kind of graph that, right? So within that, you can actually look at geography, you can look at demographics, you can look at age, and you can kind of see these patterns over a series of time, right? Next thing, you might want to create groups of important things. Now, the group creation functionality, right, has been moved here to the filter bar. So click on filters, go to groups, and here you will see existing groups from before, or else you can click on create new group and create groups. Now, very simply, let's say you have a collection of 5 videos or 10 videos or 5 channels that you want to see the stats collectively for. You just go in there and select them, and that's it. You can actually create a group and then track its performance over a period of time, right? Last thing over here is demographics and gender, right? So, these are essentially in these sections, these are quite self-explanatory. You click on these sections, you can basically see these reports, you can choose the time range, you can understand how these things move or change, and that kind of gives you that picture of what happens with your audience, right? Now, how do we measure this funnel, and therefore where do you find these metrics? So we all know this because I've just spoken about this a few times. We start with impressions. We then go into the click-through rate, which is how many people clicked on your video thumbnails, and then and how many views did it lead to. And then after that, the time spent. And we also give you unique reach in terms of your viewers, right? Unique viewers. So what you can actually do over here is, when you go into your detailed analytics, like when you click on reach, one is you can get this summary view over here where you see all of these important metrics and you can see these unique viewers, right? We spoke about this earlier. You can also, after that, you can also now start doing comparisons across seasonality, right? So for example, this video today, this video last year, using the compare to section over here, right? And then using that, kind of map back what are these fluctuations. So now you can do this for many of these important metrics, right? So I take a look at the funnel and I go to say impressions, right? Are my impressions going up or are they going down, right? Because if your reach does not increase, then you have a conversion problem. Or I'm converting people, but they are dropping off. Is my view duration okay or are people dropping off, right? So again, comparisons really help you with that, right? So this is really the best way to kind of really think about why something is happening. If you're seeing change, whenever you see change, don't look at it just in isolation, but look at it over a period of time, right? You can start looking at search trends, right? So you go back to your traffic sources, you now compare popular search terms leading to your channel in this period, or you do a compare to and you look at the previous period. You can look at it a quarter back, or you can look at it year on year, right? So that helps you talk about fundamental changes or seasonality, right? Which means that if that's seasonality, which means it happens every year, then maybe nothing to worry about, right? Maybe things will change in the next quarter. It also helps you think about things to look forward to. Because if you look at Q3 of last year, can you anticipate what will happen in the coming year, right? So these are things to then kind of think about there, right? The next thing is we have brought subscription status, right, for you to really get deeper into your relationship with your subscribers and non-subscribers, really upfront. Earlier, this used to be a hidden metric which you would filter down from somewhere around here and look at. Now you actually see this in the tab. You also see this in the summary section right up front. I showed you that. And over here too, you can just take a look at this and see, how much YouTube is actually expanding your reach beyond your subscribers. And it's not uncommon for people to have 10 to 15 times more reach on their non-subscribers versus their subscribers, right? Now, let's go to upload frequency. Now, this is a really, really important thing. A lot of times, okay, let me put it this way. A lot of us outside of, say, YouTube or digital have built certain habits with media, right? So every day at 8 o'clock I go out and I pick up the paper. Then at 9 o'clock I listen to my podcast. And in the evening at 7 o'clock I watch maybe the show. And then at 8 o'clock I watch the news. Now, what if I turned on the news at 8 o'clock and it wasn't news, but I started hearing music, right? So I need consistency in terms of what comes, how much comes, and when it comes, right? The same is true with YouTube. If you don't have consistency in terms of when, how much, and what you deliver, your audience cannot build habits around the relationship, and then therefore you will not have a healthy viewing behavior with them. So I think part of keeping yourself honest, you can really look at this upload frequency and then use that to map, what really happened. And within that, you can also look at upload consistency, right? How much did I upload, and therefore how much did people watch, and therefore what does this tell me about my consumption, right? One more, and before we kind of come to the last part of this, one more really interesting thing which you will also see over here. When you go to the filter section at the top, you will also see the option to filter by the published date of a video. Now, generally, when you take a look at most of these reports, you will see all of the consumption that happened in January for videos that were published in January or the last year or before. But what we've done is, within this filter option, we have also added a new filter option where you can say videos published only in the month of January. So you can look at March and understand only for the videos published in January, how are they doing in month 1, month 2, and month 3, which will make a lot of, this used to be 5 Excel sheets and then you cross them and see what's happening. Now this has become super simple. So that's again a new feature that we've added here, which you might find quite helpful. So now, before we move on, let me go to the online Dory to start taking your questions. So let me just put this up over here. There we are. Give me a second and I will just put this up for you. All right. Okay, here are your questions. So let me spend the next 10 to 15 minutes kind of going through this. Hey, Pablo, Gina, do you want to kind of kick this off?
Sure. As you wish, you've been speaking a lot, so maybe a break comes in handy. So what we can do is we can start reading some of these questions. Let me turn my camera on. Some of these questions, and then take turns and respond, or just jump in and respond. So the first question is, why is the lifetime duration for a video group in YTA starts when the channel was created instead of the date when the video was first uploaded, but the first video was uploaded? That's a good question. In fact, I think in some situations, it's more the first time a video was uploaded, not when the channel was created. Sometimes channel owners delete videos, but that's a good question. Maybe that's something we can raise with the team and say they shouldn't go back as far back. But I'm curious to know if this is causing any other issue that you find. So feel free to add another question there or chat if you need. But that's a good point. That's a good question.
This is actually a good idea. We could actually probably just take this back as a suggestion to the product team. They're quite engaged on this. Thank you for this. We could surface this back.
Great. And second question, is there a way we can get the details of non-subscribers so we can convert or convince them to subscribe to our channel? So I think to try to address this question, there are 2 ways to look at this. I think one is first around Google's privacy policies. We don't necessarily track every viewer for their data. So they can log in and we may be able to understand if they're registered as female, located in a certain place. But beyond that, it's very hard for us to, from a policy level, drive that data point. And secondly, actually, as Sid mentioned in the call, we are able to get a lot of non-subscriber information. Your channel might be getting a lot of views from non-subscribers, watch time, or views or engagement. And that really helps you understand using what kind of tools that drive more subscriptions, which we have addressed in our 101 classes. So there's things like end screens, different branding elements that you can put across your channel that would drive more subscribers.
But if you want their phone numbers, the answer is no, not happening. All right. There is no select all field in the video field to show all lines. Okay, actually, this is a good point. And so what happens is, for some sections where we actually can't chart it, that intentionally we do not allow for for this to happen. But there are some sections where, I know what you're saying, you get to the section, initially you see everything, then when you unselect, you don't have a select all. Good one, we could actually put this back, because after that you have to manually add. You're right. We can send this back. Good, good suggestion. Yep. Okay, next one. Okay, why can't we see the revenue earned in every traffic source? We intentionally do not disclose that. As per, I mean, this is just an executive decision internally. We are not disclosing that. We are not likely to disclose it in that way. This is the best level of granularity that we are able to show you.
Well, I can read out the next one from the Wheel of Fortune section. Is there a best practice time period that you would expect to conduct a test to yield a significant result? Anything you would recommend to test first? Maybe you want to add something on this, but in general, YouTube is, if you work with other digital properties like websites and so on, and you also test, changing ad impressions and all that, that's more immediate. On YouTube, it might take a bit longer because audience is built over a longer period of time. So it depends on what type of test you run. So I think it will depend on the type. For example, if you run a test on the format, you might compare the viewership at the first days of the viewership, and that's part of the test. But also you might want